Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In the last lecture, we started with our discussion on solving the lid-driven cavity flow using the artificial compressibility method. So we introduced the ways in which we can discretize the momentum equation and the continuity equation. And that way we can solve the flow field for the internal domain, and I left out the boundary conditions for the lecture today. So in the lecture today, I will revisit the boundary conditions, and specifically we want to see how to implement that boundary condition on a staggered grid arrangement. So without wasting any further time, let me jump into the lecture. So I have already drawn the staggered grid arrangement that we were using for the lid-driven cavity flow problem. So if I draw the lid-driven cavity here to give you an idea of the boundary conditions. So we had the u velocity of 1 for the top boundary, which acts like a lid, and everywhere else the u was 0. And to understand how the boundary conditions would be implemented here, we have to look at all the boundaries independently. So first, if we look at the left boundary, we know that some of the u velocities are lying on the left boundary itself, and whenever we want to apply that boundary condition, we can simply assign these boundaries to be equals to 0. And the same thing happens for the right boundary, that we have certain u velocities that are lying on the boundary itself. So for them as well, we can say that these u velocities, they can be simply treated as 0. Now let's go to the bottom boundary. So for the bottom boundary, so we have these as the bottom u velocities, but the physical boundary is lying. So this is the physical boundary as shaded by the yellow. So to understand that, we know that at the physical boundary, we have u equals to 0. So we have u equals to 0 at the yellow boundary. And we have some values of velocity that we have solved for. So we have solved for these interior velocities. And we want to evaluate the outside boundary velocities. So if I represent this velocity as u1 and this velocity as u2, and we know that the yellow velocity should be equals to 0. So if I linearly interpolate them, assuming a uniform grid with constant spacing, we can say that u1 plus u2 divided by 2, that is the average velocity, equals to 0. And therefore, the u2, which is the unknown velocity, it would be negative of u1. And what that means is, all of these external boundary velocities, u velocities, they would be negative of the corresponding interior u velocities. So that is how we can evaluate the bottom u velocities. The same idea would apply for the top grid. So on the top, we have some u velocities that are unknown, but we have a layer of u velocities that we have already evaluated. And because the u velocity at the top lid is supposed to be 1, so in the similar way, we can say that u1 plus u2 divided by 2, this should equals to 1, where u1 and u2, they could be any corresponding neighboring velocities. So based on that, u1 here, which is the unknown, it would be 2 minus u2. So in this way, we can evaluate the u velocity field in its entirety. The same idea would apply for the v velocity field. So we have evaluated the v interior to the domain, and we want to implement the boundary conditions at all the boundaries. This is much easier because all the v boundaries are 0. So any v velocity that is staggered in such a way that it lies on the boundary, it would be 0, whereas the other one would be used from the interpolation, just like we did now. So these velocities here, that is on the top and on the bottom boundary, since they lie on the boundary itself, and they would be 0 because the v velocity is supposed to be 0 in the system. And on the other hand, If we look at a velocity pair such as this, these two, and if I represent this as V1, this as V2, we would say that V1 would be equals to minus of V2, where V2 is an interior point which could be obtained from the discretization of momentum equation. And because we are on the topic of V velocities, because I didn't emphasize the calculation of V in my previous lecture, so if we want to calculate V at any point, so if I consider this particular 3 comma 3 V velocity, then we can define a control volume for this, and corresponding to this control volume you can obtain all the terms that are used in the momentum equation. So for instance, the first term is called as, so I'll write it here so that it doesn't cause any confusion. So the first term is del uv divided by del x. So in that, what you can do is you can calculate the product of u and v at this point and the product of u and v at this point through interpolation. So let's call it uv at point small w and uv at point small e, and this would become uv at small e minus uv at small w divided by delta x. And similarly, the other term would be evaluated from the north and south face. And the pressure gradient here would can be evaluated from 3 comma 3, and I believe this would be 4 comma 3. So this way you can solve for the V velocity. So now we have completely solved for the velocity field, and the only unknown that we are left with is the pressure at the boundary. So now let us look at how to use the pressure boundary conditions for the lid-driven cavity flow. So I have slightly changed the color scheme to emphasize that we have calculated everything else except these exterior pressure points. And the idea here was, if you remember from the previous lecture, we defined these outside grid points because we said that if we had a solid boundary or a regular boundary, and if we had grid points on the boundary where we didn't had the pressure information, then it was very complex to get the pressure boundary condition right. And that is why we staggered the grid in such a way that we had one point inside and one point outside the boundary. And based on the knowledge that across the boundary or normal to the boundary there would be no flow, then we can say that these two pressures are equal to each other. If I just call them P1 and 2, and we would use the same knowledge here, and if I consider any point here or even a point such as this one, so we know that normal to the boundary there would be no flow. So the pressure at outside of the boundary, it would be equal to the inside of the boundary, and that is the pressure boundary condition. If you are liking this series so far, please give a thumbs up to this video and subscribe to this channel so that you can get updates regarding the future lectures. So now we have everything that is needed to solve the problem, and now I'll summarize what would be the steps to get the solution right. So remembering from the previous part, so first we initialize the problem with the u and v. So we started with u is 0, v is 0, p equals to 1 everywhere except the top lid where u was 1, and let us say that is at y equals to 1. Then we solve for the u at n plus 1 and v at n plus 1 using the momentum equation. Thirdly, we solve for the pressure at n plus 1 using the continuity equation, and that is where we left in the previous part. And the fourth step is implement the boundary conditions that we learned today. And usually the fifth part is to monitor the error. So usually in the fluid flow problems, you can use the continuity equations to monitor the error, because we know that when the u and v equations are correct, and when the u and v velocity fields are correct, they should satisfy the continuity equation, and that means the continuity residual, which is del u over del x plus del v over del y, when it's really close to zero, then means that we have got a divergent free velocity field. So we can use continuity residual to monitor the error. So we can use del u del x divided by del v over del y to monitor the error. And once it is less than the, let us say, the threshold error, then we say we've got the perfect solution, and if not, then we go back to the step 2. And that's how you can do the iterative procedure. So I'll call it off here because I want to give you a little bit of time to do this practice yourself and see if you can get the code right. Usually there might be a few bugs, which in my experience has always primarily used because of the wrong implementation of boundary conditions or some of the signs getting lost here and there. So don't lose hope if you don't get the solution right, but try to see if you can at least code the majority parts in the MATLAB. And in the next lecture, I would be going through the code which I would be writing in MATLAB, and I would be sharing that with you as well. So the next part would be the final part in this process of solving the lid-driven cavity flow using the artificial compressibility method. If you have any questions, please feel free to write in the comments, and I would be addressing them very quickly. So I'll see you in the next lecture, where we would be taking these discretized equations and transforming them into the MATLAB commands. So stay tuned so that you can get the updates, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care and bye-bye.